We're going to do our exercise from the last class, lesson 5, loading a short database, and repeat it from scratch. If you have a table, no matter what it's called, let's delete that table. Let's go, in the meantime, I'm going to go create a chat GPT session and we'll start this from the beginning. One of the things that you may have noticed is that Supabase does not use uppercase or mixed case names for fields. So we noticed it in the class, we're going to be aware of it so we don't have to do extra debugging, and you'll see how I incorporate it into my prompting. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to take the file. I'm going to say help me write a PostgreSQL statement to create this table on my Supabase server. Note, here's the first place where I'm going to use it, that Supabase does not use mixed case or uppercase letters in its field names. Any code I request from you should keep this in mind. So first we will get the query to create the table. So we've deleted the table. Yep. Table is deleted, and we're going to go into the table editor and copy the code. So you see that it's not asking for uppercase or mixed case field names, which doesn't really change the outcome. You're still your table will look the same, but now we're going to have a little more consistency when we start to create this program. So here's the table with the fields created. Great. Now I am using Supabase via a web interface to manage my database. Help me write a Python script that will read the CSV file, which is located in the same folder as the Python script, and load it into the Supabase data table. Remember, the Supabase table does field names do not have caps. Okay, so now we're going to have ChatGPT write out the script. Now in the script it's asking for the Supabase URL and for the API key, and we can get them from the control panel. So let's copy this code, let's put it into a file. I'm going to call it step 1 and save it, and actually grab from the project settings under API, you will find the project URL. So that's one thing we need to put in here. And the other thing we need is the project key. So the project key is here. I'm going to copy it and paste it, and don't try to grab the key because it won't work for you. And then, because I'm going to delete and recreate the project. Alright, so it looks like the file name is correct. It's over here. I'm going to give you another cool tip. If you go into extensions, search for CSV, right? CSV. And this plugin called Rainbow CSV will colorize CSV files when you look at them within Visual Studio Code. So mine is already installed. And if I go and look at the CSV file, I have colors. You see, every column has a different color, so you can really see, understand what's in the CSV file. Okay, so now let's try to run this. So I'm going to check that my environment is set up, clear my screen. Let's make sure that we have pip install pandas and Supabase. my screen is showing that these are already installed because I did it earlier, and yours will take a little longer to install. So now let's run step 1. All right, so it's giving me an error. I forgot to close the quotes, or I removed one of the closed quotes by mistake. Let's run that again. Waiting. Data successfully loaded. All right, that was a one shot. That's really cool. Let's go to the table editor. Let's click on Kindle Reviews, and boom, here are all the 30 records. And you saw that took a couple of seconds. Just imagine if this was 10,000 records. It's really long, before you try to load much bigger data sets, there are a couple of things that we're going to need to do. So we know that our external table will have records, that the table that we're loading has these IDs, and these IDs have been identified as a primary key. So you cannot duplicate a record, you cannot create another record with an ID of 30, 29, or any of the ones that exist. If I try to run the program again, it will therefore crash. So if I try to run it again, it will crash because we are getting a key violation. So a duplicate key value violates a unique constraint. That's right over here. What I would do is I would want to add error correction, because there might be an instance that this program runs, we get to record number 10,000, it crashes, and we want to run it again. We don't want to delete the 10,000 records that we already loaded. So let's ask ChatGPT. I'm going to copy this so that, before we do that, I'm going to want to move the URL and key out of the file so that I could, for instance, share it with someone else without exposing my key and database URL. So let's make that change first. Modify the script so the URL and key are stored in an external configuration file. There are a lot of different ways that this could be done. Let's see what ChatGPT chooses. So it's suggesting to create a text file called config.ini that has that information, and then it installs a package that knows how to parse config files. Let's do that. I'm going to copy this as a format, and then in my folder I'm going to create a new file called config.ini, and I'm going to paste. So this is how I need to save it. I'm going to grab this information. So the first is the URL, copy that and put that here, and the I missed the HTTP. And the second is to paste my key. So I'm going to grab the key without the quotes, because I'm noticing that they don't have the quotes here. So paste, save. Now what has changed in the code? First of all, we're going to need to install this package. It's adding an import for the config parser, and then it's adding these statements to load up the variables that have this information. So I'm just going to copy these lines. You could copy the whole code, and that would work as well. But let's see if we can just suffice with this. So I'm just going to delete the keys that I manually added and creating the Supabase client, because that's being replaced by these lines. Am I right? No, I shouldn't have deleted the client load, so it's just this. There you go. So now I have the variables loaded from the configuration file using the package config parser. Save that and pip install config parser. And now let's run it. So what is it saying now? Okay, so now it worked, because we're back to the unique constraints. We violate the constraints, because what is happening now is we're reading again from record with the ID 0, we're trying to load it, and we're creating a conflict, and we don't have any error trapping. So one of the things that I would do whenever I write a program is just ask ChatGPT to have error checking everywhere in the file. please add error traps wherever this code might break. And I'm not going to even ask it to address the duplicate key. Let's see how it will handle it. So now it's going to give us a new file. Let's call this step 2, because this one now has some substantial changes. It still has the config parser, and now you're noticing it's doing some pretty cool things. The whole configuration load is now part of a separate function. Def is how you create a function in Python, and it has error checking in case there's a problem with the configuration file. Maybe you forgot to create one, or something's wrong in its format. So everything here now has error correction. It's pretty extensive. Let's go here and let's create a new file and step 2.py, paste, save, and run. So now you see that it's not aborting the program. It just keeps on going to the next record in case there is a error in inserting. This is going to be helpful because we could, for example, go into this table just to show you that this works. I'm going to delete record number 13, just a random one in the middle, number 13. So now we don't have 13, and we're going to run this program again. When it tries to load 13, it will successfully add it. So now if I reload this, you'll see that there's a 13. Okay. We also don't need this kind of an elaborate error. Let's try to understand where the error trapping is for adding records. So this is where we're uploading to Supabase, and you see that there is an exception statement, and then it tells us what is the row that it tried to add, and it spits out the error. That's what's in this variable called E. That's how we get this. So, right, we have error, failed to insert row, and then we have the index, and then we have the error itself. So one thing I could do is I might want to simplify this error. I'm just going to comment this out, and a comment is a pound, a hash sign, and I'm going to duplicate this, but I'm just going to take out the error itself and save that. So now we'll have a little of a cleaner display. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to actually have a progress bar. So I want you to add a progress bar to the program. If there is an error, it should be displayed briefly on the right side of the progress bar, and at the end of the execution, a report will indicate which records could not be added and the reason, the error code. Okay, that's a lot, and let's see what this will do for us. So TQBM is a standard Python library to create progress bars while it's creating the code for me. I'll just install it. Pip install TQBM, and it's already installed on my system. And now we have we have the code. All right, finally, copy this, and let's call this step 3. So right click, new file, step 3.py. So this one has the progress bar. Save this and run it. So look at that. We now have details of an error. We can see progress, and then we see a report of what happened during the execution. So here we go. It shows you the duplicate. That's the error report. And this, just to show you how this works, I could go back to my table and I could delete all the rows, delete these 31 rows, and that will avoid any key errors. Rerun it, and now you'll see that Did that run? Yeah, it ran. I don't know why it's creating this output, so let's get this cleaned up. So let's show ChatGPT what this looks like. All my records were added, but the error report looks like this. So it's going to fix that error and give us the change in code. Hopefully this will be clean. So the next thing that I would want to do, now my program is starting to look pretty complex. So while it's spitting this out, now I want you to break this into separate Python files or modules. So the main file is simple and easy to understand. Also give me full comments in the body of the code. This is part of the cleanup before you start to have a more mature code. So it's telling you that it's going to separate into separate files. These are the different files, okay? And then each file, it will give you the contents of the file. So let's do this. Let's create a subfolder for let's call it step 4. Oops, I created it. I don't think I created it in the right place. Let's make sure it's under lesson 5. And in step 4, I'm going to have these separate files. So the first one is config loader. So new file, config loader.py, paste, save. The next file is Supabase _ client. So Supabase _ client.py. That should be right. Yep. Close that. The next file is csvloader.py. So csvloader.py, save. And last one is uploader. Copy, uploader, and the last one is main. Alright, so it's now telling us that the way to run this is have all of these in the same directory and then run main. So all of them are in the same directory. Hopefully I gave them the right names. Python main. Sorry, we have to go into folder step 4. That's where I put these, and then run main, Python main. It did not find configuration file. So this is really cool. Remember we did some error trapping before, and it's right. I have the configuration file that I've been using for the other Python programs in the folder above us. So I'm gonna copy this, Control-C and Control-V. I now have a configuration ini file in this subfolder as well. So I'm going to run it. And it didn't find the CSV file. Now I could copy the CSV file, or in my, I think it is in the main, where do we get the name of the file? Here. So the name of the file, CSV file, is in this variable. So instead of trying to look for the file here, I could point it to the parent directory. Let's see if that works. There we go. All right, we're getting duplicate key errors, but that's okay. That's expected. We're going to delete all these rows and run this again. And there you go. So now it's getting a lot cleaner. You can probably tell what's happening. We already had this issue with no status code, so we would tell it that's what the error is, and it would clean this up. I'll pause here. Now we have working code, and if you were trying to load a really large file, it's from this point on that you would start to import all of the records. So if you had an issue before when you were loading a couple of hundred records, it will skip the ones that are duplicate and will move on to the next ones. That's how you build a data loader.